All right, we are back. We are back with a so-called lunch hour show, which somehow always switches time. But we should be back to your regular scheduled programming, 12:30 p.m. Tuesday and Thursday. So, welcome everyone. Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome. I mean, it seems like we're just taking lunch at different time now. But I'm happy we're at least consistent with the days right now, right? I think we've done Tuesdays and Thursdays on a consistent basis.
Yeah, I mean lunch. It's dinner time for me. It's lunch time for you.
So Neil, I mean, we had a crazy few days, right? Since we last did our last stream on Tuesday. A lot has happened. I think the biggest one has been that Stargate announcement. But anything else that you really kind of just top level, anything else that really caught your attention in the last few days? I know we had earnings from Netflix. I don't know if you watched that. Normally I don't, but I did see. How could I miss? The stock price jumped up dramatically, and obviously an increase in price. Not something I'm happy about.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we had Netflix, great quarter. Guidance was a bit weak-ish, but the market didn't really care that much because, I mean, the quarter was just an amazing quarter. Um, Other than that, of course, it's been a slow week, but the big news came from, of course, the AI sector, OpenAI, SoftBank, ARM, that huge announcement. That's Stargate. For those that don't know what's in the title, it's basically that huge project. But I think, I mean, other than that, I think this week has been quiet-ish, I would say. Next week is probably the beginning of a big earnings season, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, out of one that wasn't popular, one that I followed this week, Neil, was SK Hynix, a big memory player. They just reported last night. Most people don't follow it, right, Neil, because it's not traded here in the United States. Not a U.S. based company, but they do kind of provide, at least for us AI investors, some kind of great insight. And if you own Micron technology, it's also kind of a great kind of seeing if there's a difference between Micron story and SK Hynix story. Um, so a lot to cover there.
How
Some
can I
other
forget
things.
that? I covered this today. I'm like, did I forget something? And then I was like, yeah, SK Hynix, of course, SK Hynix. A couple of hours ago, I talked about, but yeah, it was a good quarter. It was a good quarter, and basically reinforces our view on Micron.
Yeah, I agree, right? Neil, it gave us just on the top level overview, and maybe I might miss something that you can tackle. Is we saw strong strength in HBM, very much similar what Micron is saying. I mean, they expect for their end, SK Hynix, which is still a leader, expect 100% year-over-year growth in HBM market for 2025. I think that's insane. The other thing is very similar to Micron, right, Neil? Their consumer market is still pretty weak. They kind of mentioned that the PC was still slow, the mobile business was still slow, but they expect that to turn around in the second half of this year. Again, very similar to what Micron said. So, in my opinion, I saw SK Hynix drop, I saw Micron drop. I think the market just believes HBM is all there is. But once we start to see that tailwind from the consumer electronics, I think people are going to be like, hey, why didn't we purchase maybe companies like Micron or SK Hynix when they really weren't meeting expectations?
Yeah, no, I agree. And plus, the fact that and Micron and SK Hynix say exactly the same thing does show me that it's not a company specific issue. It's just an industry specific issue, and both of them will see some huge tailwinds starting second half of 2025. Plus, I mean, that HBM growth is just insane, and that even with the headwinds from the other segments, the HBM growth is just insane.
Yeah, definitely. So first, just we're gonna get. I think we should get to some questions first, Neil, and then maybe talk a little bit about things. So just want to give a quick shout out to some people in my chat: Matthew, Rojas, Jeremy, Martin, and Greg. I don't know, Neil, if you want to shout out anybody on your side.
No, nobody deserves one right now.
So Neil, there's a pretty cool question here that I like, and I think we both kind of have our. I think we might have similar thoughts on this. And it's one by Greg Blank. So I don't believe
You
again,
don't
Neil,
have control again of
no, you're holding the power out. Okay, you
this
want
is very strange.
power, Neil.
Is
But
this
Greg,
one?
is ARM really involved, if at all? They wouldn't make such a huge data center out of ASIC chips with hard code. So for those that are not familiar, maybe a quick background, right, Neil? Nvidia, and I don't know, Neil, if maybe you can pull up the Stargate press release from OpenAI. But OpenAI, Oracle, SoftBank, and MGX announced a massive investment in AI supercomputer and AI infrastructure here in the United States. The initial investment is going to be $100 billion, which they say is already in works right now. And they're building a few facilities in Texas, in data centers in Texas already. The other 400 billion are expected to happen within the next 4 years during the Trump administration. So is what is said. In forms of technological partners, they mentioned, and we can see here, ARM, Microsoft, Nvidia, Oracle, and OpenAI are the key initial technology partners. Microsoft and Oracle, in my opinion, make perfect sense, right? They are great at building data centers. So as technology partners, they are probably providing that kind of solution in forms of how the infrastructure works, how the software to power it up and all that, as they've done it before. Nvidia makes sense as a lot of GPUs. OpenAI, they're kind of the brain of the thing, but ARM was always a tricky one. I'm going to give my wild thesis here, Neil. Maybe you can control me. I think SoftBank is just really trying to somehow maybe just put ARM, since they own ARM, in this news to maybe get that price a little heavy. Maybe we might see SoftBank sell some ARM shares in the future as they need to build some form of cash for this. Because at the end of the day, the only real way, without speculating, the real way that ARM is part of this is Nvidia uses ARM architecture for their CPUs, the Grace, and I forget which one's the next one, Viera. I forget the next CPU coming from Nvidia, but they are on ARM architecture. So that's the only way, an indirect way of being a technological partner. Now there might be speculations that ARM might be helping OpenAI or something, maybe create their own AI chips. We've talked about that in the past, Neil, some rumors happening within that time frame, but I think it's more of just a little, hey, let me just add one of the companies that my organization owns, and let me see if we can pump it up a little.
This is exactly what I tweeted out a couple of hours ago. ARM being worth $175 billion, SoftBank probably still owning close to 90% of it. I mean, it makes sense, right, for ARM to pop up in that press release. But yeah, I don't know, other than being basically owned by SoftBank, I don't see, unless ARM has something coming out pretty soon, which they are pretty ambitious, so maybe they'll come out with something we don't know yet. Could be. But yeah, it's basically Masayoshi saying, look, we have close to 90% of ARM. We are spending here hundreds of billions of dollars. Of course, we are going to put them in this project. Which again, okay, fair enough. I mean, if you're bringing the money, I guess you can choose one of the players here.
Yeah, and I mean, like, theoretically, he's not wrong. ARM is important for that CPU that Nvidia makes, right? It's just more of like, are we is there something extra? And I think maybe that's what some investors might be hoping in the ARM community. They might be hoping that this is a sign that there's an extra avenue ARM can be entering in this space. So yeah, Neil, anything else you think we can discuss about this partnership or Stargate in general? Or if anybody has any questions about Stargate.
Yeah, no, I mean, it also makes sense. I mean, if ARM suddenly does get a huge boost in backlog starts increasing a lot, revenue, because right now it's a quite expensive stock. Incredible company, super expensive stock. And with everything that we've seen in the AI space, it's not like we're seeing a huge acceleration in growth for ARM, especially not in the last couple of quarters. Hey, it's growing okay, but I'm yet to see like this 30% quarter over quarter growth and stuff like that. Maybe this project can change things, but until we get more news, remains to be seen. Then with regards to the money aspect, there has been a lot of talk on X, Elon Musk, Sam Altman, where's the money? Show me the money. It's like Jerry Maguire here. I mean, it is a lot of money, right? Starting $100 billion, then pumping it up until $500 billion. You do have to ask the question, who, where, what? There are some partners, of course, like you mentioned, MGX, which comes from Abu Dhabi. They are going probably to put quite a lot of money in that. I think President Trump talked about Saudi Arabia investing more than $500 billion in the US, not in this project, but in general. So there are probably some outside investors that will definitely be interested in putting some money into that project. I don't see OpenAI having the money. Satya did drop the mic yesterday with his "I'm good for my $80 billion," which was like a baller move, talking about $80 billion as if it's $80. So yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. It again shows the strength of the tech scene in the United States.
That definitely, Neo. And I think we're getting some pretty cool questions here again with the project. We got one from Joseph and we got one from Greg Blanket, pretty much both talking about the same thing. Is how is Orcl being impacted in this kind of play, right? We're seeing Orcl building up. This is how I see it, Neo. Maybe you might kind of give me another viewpoint of it. OpenAI is the expensive spoiled child that Microsoft has. And OpenAI believes that they can grow higher and higher and advance their technology at a faster rate if they had more computational power. Now, Dad Microsoft is like, hey, look, we'll spend $80 billion on our own thing, not on this kind of Stargate program. We'll spend $80 billion. We'll obviously help you with the computational power. But we have to also be realistic with our shareholders that we can't, if you wanted an open check, we can't give that to you. We can't give that to you, OpenAI. So they allowed OpenAI to go find new uncles, new family members that can give them some allowance. I think Orcl is now one of those uncles that is going to give an allowance to OpenAI. Now, Orcl can definitely benefit from this because now OpenAI will have the ability to use Oracle's infrastructure solution and paying Orcl infrastructure money, right? They're going to be renting out GPU servers from them. So it is beneficial for Orcl. Now, I think as a Microsoft played it more of a safe bet where they're still spending a lot in CapEx, but they limited their growth a little bit by not going to the full extent of OpenAI because obviously it can be a hit or miss here. So they limit their growth, but in my opinion, they also limit their risk. Now, because they limit their growth, that other growth is going to Orcl right now. So I think Orcl can benefit from this, especially if the computational power continues to be heavily. But if the computational needed is not as heavily as intended, then Microsoft will always be the number one choice for OpenAI. So it's definitely beneficial for Orcl. And I think Microsoft just decided to play it safe instead of full growth mode right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Microsoft, I believe I've seen some reports, maybe fake news or not, but it does make sense, right? Because right now, Microsoft, it's OpenAI. But I feel like Microsoft does want to open up to all the others as well, right? Even Gemini or Meta AI, Anthropic and all of those other players, which of course is quite strange because they invested quite a lot and took a huge stake in OpenAI, but it does put them at a small disadvantage to not offer all the other solutions. Plus now, with Oracle being one of the big partners in this whole story, which we can see, actually it says it here, that OpenAI and SoftBank will commit $19 billion each. And then the four initial partners, so OpenAI, SoftBank, Oracle, and MGX, will commit roughly $45 billion in total, which would give OpenAI and SoftBank a roughly 40% stake in this joint venture, which is just talking about the first $100 billion, of course, not the rest. For Oracle, of course, it should reaccelerate their business, because I believe last quarter there was some disappointment, if I remember correctly. But these types of projects should definitely reaccelerate their growth. Big winners for sure. It's quite interesting to see players like Microsoft and Oracle in the same project, in the same deal. But then again, it also makes sense, I would say, because if OpenAI wins, Microsoft also wins as well. So win-win-win.
And I think also, Neil, I was reading Semi-Analysis released an article today that actually got me thinking. And this $500 billion, they mentioned not to think about it as CapEx, but more total cost of ownership, right? Because you're going to have a lot of other expenses outside of just your capital investments. So think about it like that. I mentioned it in the previous video, Neil, where the $500 billion to me is not an absolute number. And if I was kind of like running numbers for Nvidia and all these players, I really wouldn't run that number to like a truth somewhere. It's more just seeing this trend continue. If OpenAI and all these big players are investing heavily, why isn't XAI going to do something similar? Why isn't Google going to maybe follow something similar? So it's just more a reaffirmation that yes, there is this bullish number, and yes, the market can also react in similar ways to this.
Agreed. I mean, it's going to be quite interesting. I think we are a couple of days into this new administration. We're already seeing these types of projects and spending, which is quite crazy.
Definitely, Neil. I have a question here from Rojas, Neil. If maybe next you might have one. Any solutions to the bot spam in sight? Rojas, I would love there to be a solution. Every single of my videos gets hit, Neil, with at least 50 to 100 spam. The crazy secret that they're doing is I can't spam. I block one word and then they just create a new fake crypto. So if anybody's watching, no, I have not talked about any XAI coin. I will not talk about any XAI coin. And my apologies if the comments are spammed. It's just very hard because usually they I feel like they know when I sleep, Neil. They usually do it when I'm knocked out, so I can't work fast enough.
No, it's super annoying because even when you want to answer some comments, you have to scroll by so many spam comments, and then sometimes they just get so good that I think it's a real person, but no, it's not a real person. It's not a real person. And even this week, there was one, actually, no, two videos where there was a fake couch investor answering people. I'm like, what the heck is going on here? This is, I mean, it's crazy. The comment section on YouTube has been a disaster for 4 years. I don't know why they can't fix it, why they can't. I don't really like Reddit, but the Reddit forums and threads there are quite good to read. Easy to read, I should say. I just don't understand why they can't do it on YouTube. Or easy fix, you can all become members of our channel, and then we can filter on membership, and it's much easier.
Yeah, Greg, I gotta check. I don't think. I mean, I have a few tools that help me kind of like mass delete, but again, I have to wake up for that to happen. And I usually feel I mean, YouTube is obviously my career, so giving some other app access to it is just something I usually don't do. Yeah. And what's going on, Matt? Just give a quick shout out to Matt here.
This is Matthew.
Yep, he is awesome.
I hope you're feeling better. I think he didn't feel well last time.
Yeah, last time he mentioned he was sick. Hopefully he's back to 100. So Neil, anything you want to cover? Any questions you see? Any random thoughts that have been floating in your head?
I mean, I leave the big things for next week when we get closer to the Intel earnings report and earnings call, because I think that will be something very interesting. But now going into this earnings season, what are your big expectations? Let's say.
Um, I'm just, to be honest, I just love listening to CEOs talk. I feel like they always share some great insight of where the market is going. Obviously, as an Nvidia investor, I'm very, very curious about capex, capital expenditure. So that's what I'm going to be listening from big tech. Um, Mark Zuckerberg, I enjoy his earnings call. I always feel like he and some of the other players kind of go off on a rant, which can give us a little bit of an insight of what's happening in the space. Especially, I don't know, Neo, if you've been following, OpenAI has kind of mentioned that maybe their O3 model is coming out with some AI agents. Perplexity also announced some AI agents. So it definitely seems like a heavy competition in the AI market right now. So that has me pretty excited.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, I don't know if you remember, but I'm in Europe, and here AI is still in the Stone Age. We don't have access to fire yet. we don't have access to fire just yet, which is quite
Fire
annoying.
good.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there is also Tesla, so that's going to be quite interesting. Always entertaining.
Wait, Neil,
But
so you can't use Grok like from
no,
like
no, I can use Grok, but things like Meta AI, no.
oh, okay, all right,
Meta AI
yeah.
doesn't exist. A couple of features, other features as well. Plus, every time there's probably a new feature from OpenAI, I don't get it until I don't know when. I don't
Oh
really
yeah, you guys
use
get those
ChatGPT,
features late.
but yeah,
What do you guys, GPT-2 or something?
I use Gemini too, so because everything's Android. But yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, in forms, I think this week we have today we have Texas Instruments reporting
Hmm.
earnings. Nothing I really follow too much. It's usually a boring. Nothing wrong with it, but it's just boring for me. Their management is always very weird on how they report things. They don't really want to share much, which I kind of hate about Texas.
Yeah, I mean, we did talk a little bit about analog last time, which is the boring part of the semiconductor industry, but still a quite important one. Um, there is this question here. I think they have 1 month left. SMCI.
Oh wow.
They have 1 month left to file, and I don't know. I found it extremely interesting that today, I think today, I'll let you know who suddenly raised their price target, which again, I don't know why they'll do something like that before they actually file. It's
I haven't even followed that one too much lately. Let me see. Is it
Loop.
really only 1 month to go?
Yeah, at the end of February, that's the deadline.
But like that was quick.
That was very quick. Yeah, it's Loop Capital reiterated its buy rating on the stock due in part to Nvidia's Blackwell ramp. So they increased the
Mhm.
price target from $35 to $40, which, okay, fine. We all know Supermicro is important and all of that, but if you don't file on time, you're gone. So it doesn't really
Yeah.
matter much. And it's not like they didn't have time to file. It's been months and months, which is crazy. But oh well. That's also going to be quite interesting in February, because they're probably going to release their preliminary figures first, because that happens before the deadline. So
They
it's a
always
crazy
do it.
story.
It's such a super micro thing to do, though. I feel like every quarter they released preliminary results.
I mean, now,
Um,
no, actually now, no, because the previous one they didn't have an auditor anymore. Now they have one, the BDO ones, which is basically the worst of the best. So let's see if they had time to go through all the numbers.
let's see. We have make. Um, I mean, there's a lot of questions here that I see. I don't know if you wanna. If there's one in special you want to take right
Want to do
now,
this
Neil.
one?
All right. Who do you guys think will benefit from setting up hardware for Stargate? Will it involve the typical data center type of companies like Dell, HP, or Supermicro? Any thoughts there, Neil, on your end?
I mean, I would assume it's the usual suspects, right? I would assume it's still Dell and SMCI, because if you're the leader in the industry with those types of products, I assume they'll keep on using them.
Yeah. The only thing, Neil, is a lot of these hyper players, like the big boys, Microsoft and all these other players, they don't use any of these players because they constantly build massive data centers. They actually have their own teams to do this. It makes more sense for them to do that. So since Microsoft is part of this technological, I wonder what route they could go. But at the end of the day, since this is a supply constraint market, even if they're able to build it, they might still have to outsource it. And I think it could be any of them. We definitely seen Dell and Supermicro win big with XAI. That could be seen as evidence of them doing good. But I think HP even kind of recently won a contract with XAI for a smaller plant. So it's at the end of the day, Neil, that's going to be more of a margin fight if any of those get choice, and it's going to be like, hey, who's going to give it to us at a better price?
Yeah, and that's the problem with these types of companies. It's a fight with margins, and the bottom is quite low.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think will be the next AI consumer solution like ChatGPT?
To be honest, Neil, I do think it's going to be something in the AI agent world, where I think we're seeing it with. Again, you don't have Fire yet, so I don't know if you have GPT Task. Do you have that yet, Neil? Tasking on GPT?
I wouldn't
Probably
know.
not.
I wouldn't
So
know.
GPT Task, Neil, is pretty cool. It's like I can create a task where for example, I tell GPT every day at 11 o'clock, give me the top best semiconductor news available. So every day at 11 o'clock, I get it on my email box. That evolving into more. So now being able to have like multiple prompts after that, like creating the agent would be like creating multiple steps with that. So first step would be get all the top AI news for me. Then second step would be like, okay, grab all these news and create a semiconductor newsletter for me. Then third be like fix this semiconductor newsletter and do something with it. I think AI agentic, where you're going to be able to put like Lego pieces together in a very simple way to have an actual use case, could be. I think it's going to be the next big thing.
Do I need to pay for that, or is it on their latest thing?
It is on their latest thing. So if you look at all your models, there should be 4.0, and one of them should be 4.0 with task or something like that.
Yeah, you think I see all of that? I only have GPT Plus and ChatGPT. That's the only thing I get here.
Oh man, yeah. So it's pretty cool. I mean, like I said, it's very simple, but I think as we get this year is going to be a year where we're going to be able to put Lego pieces of that together, where you can do more than just one step. You'll be able to do multiple steps with that information.
Yeah, I mean, I assume all of them will have these types of things, right? All big players will have agents running. Meta probably is going to be one of the leaders there because of the network effects that it has. Google as well, quite easy, right? You just say, I'm going on a holiday 2 weeks to Italy, book me a couple of hotels, couple of flights here and there, and puff, it does it, and you're done. I don't know if there is going to be a specific new consumer solution. I think we're just going to continue what we get right now, and they're just going to become better and better.
Yeah, definitely. Neil, this is pretty cool. I don't know. I want a clarification from Bob. Bob asked, will Nvidia be up and running in Arizona by 2028? Bob, just a quick clarification. Are you asking are they going to be making chips with, are they going to be ordering from TSMC in Arizona by 2028? It would be embarrassing, but I don't know what Nvidia is building in Arizona in 2028. Let me do a quick Google here to see if I find
I assume it's TSMC, unless they build something new, but you would have known about it.
Okay, yeah, I feel like I would have known. I think it's with TSMC. I mean, in forms of manufacturing, Bob, Nvidia is never going to enter that at the moment. So they're going to continue to partner really well with TSMC. TSMC has the manufacturing that they're building in Arizona. We have heard reports that Apple and Nvidia are going to be big customers there. The only thing, Bob, I want to say to be careful is in the manufacturing steps, there's a lot of different steps that happen. And the manufacturing of the chip, and it's usually that circle that you see, the wafer, that's not the bottleneck in AI chips. It's something that happens after that. And that is also expected to pick back up. But unless we see more plants in advanced packaging, the chip wafers don't really dictate too much of the growth. But I do believe Nvidia at the end of the day is going to be a big player with TSMC here in the United States.
And hopefully in the future with Intel. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I think with Intel, they're definitely going to enter in the advanced packaging, Neil. With their, I forget, Furbius, I forget what they call their CoWoS version of advanced packaging.
A weird name.
Yeah, but I think in the them being a big customer of Intel, at least in there.
Yeah, I do want to answer this one. For those that are SMCI shareholders for some reason, if they do get delisted, it's just that your shares will be trading OTC markets. They're not going to go to zero, just like back in 2018. It's just OTC, less volume. That's it. And then if they get relisted somehow before they don't file their thing on time, then you just get back to the Nasdaq or whatever.
Yeah, it's not like your money disappears. It might disappear in terms of you might see a negative price action for them being delisted. And also with lower volume, you kind of tend to see a bigger spread between the bid and ask. So that can impact, but your money really won't go to zero.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's see. Matthew mentioned not in Arizona yet due to many compliance and regulations restriction yet. So TSMC's highest end manufacturing is in Taiwan, and it will be. I think we talked about this last time, right?
Yeah.
TSMC actually mentioned it perfect. The reason they say is their R&D, their engineers are all in Taiwan. So it makes the perfect sense for their most advanced chips, advanced manufacturing to stay there, where they can, hey, call an engineer at a day's notice to maybe go to that plant or that plant and see what's wrong, right? Because imagine doing your most advanced manufacturing here in the United States and you have all your talent in Taiwan. How can you like bring them over if something breaks? Does the time shift, the workforce difference? It's just logistically not making sense.
Yeah, and that's the big advantage also that Taiwan has, is just that the people, the know-how, basically. You can spend a lot of money, but if you don't have the right talent, especially in these types of areas, very, very difficult to compete. And that's why I think Intel is still going to struggle against TSMC in the future, unless somehow they manage to pick some Taiwanese folks and come drag them to the United States. But I think if that happens, they'll go to TSMC and not Intel.
A question here from Harish, Neil. I believe there is a surge in local AI in the enthusiast market. Do you think this will be coming into the consumer market soon? What would be a form factor you believe it could be? So when Harish, for those that are not familiar, means local AI is when maybe someone who has a little tech savvy can bring an AI model into their own PCs where you don't have to pay for a GPT subscription. So obviously, those are usually the hobbyists, those that are able to tinker with that software solution. But in the consumer market, you can't really do that. I think in forms of a consumer form factor, Neil, we're gonna have to see a company actually create something for the users. I think the two biggest are not going to be like a LLM. It's in my opinion, the two biggest are going to be the robotics industry and the healthcare market. And as a user in the consumer world, we're not really going to think, oh, AI is fueling this, but it can grab huge consumer growth in both those segments, as they would be a massive impact, in my opinion.
No, I agree. I think Travis mentioned that in your previous live stream, right? Where we're spending so much money on all of it, all these models, all of these factories and all of that. Do we really need to spend that much money? Can we not spend less? Because at the end of the day, right now, what has changed that much? Let's say, from us a consumer perspective, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, I think AI agents, my three biggest bullish cases are AI agents, robotics, and somewhere in the healthcare market. Um, I think the AI agents is going to be a very tricky one to play, Neil, in forms of investment, because it seems like there's so many players doing this. You hear a lot about it with Salesforce, who's always bad mouthing Microsoft. You have Microsoft doing it. You have Google and probably all these players doing it. The other ones I think are going to be pretty fun, but they're going to be either high risk, high reward.
Yeah, I mean, with agents, I assume those that have the big network effects, right? So the Googles, the Metas, the Apples, they'll be quite successful. Though Apple sucks right now when it comes to AI. I think network effects are going to play a huge role here. Plus, if you own a device that you have a huge advantage, whether it's iPhone or Android, AI on device is going to be of extreme importance.
Neil, there's a question that I got on Twitter, and I think I actually might have missed it here earlier. It was very early from Jeremy. Would love to hear your take on optical interposer manufacturers like Poet. Do these products have a place in the new AI data centers? I don't follow that company, Neil, much, but in forms of optics, optics is very important for data centers because at the end of the day, for data to transfer, you're going to need the fastest communication, and nothing is really faster than the speed of light. So if they're focusing on optical interposers, that is definitely a bullish case. The only thing is the fiber world, the optics world is one that is very heavily competition. There's a lot of players in that. One of my first engineering jobs, I actually used to work for an optics company with fibers, more for like kind of high power lasers, but it was also for optics communication. And there's just in that space, there's a lot of competition. So there's obviously small players that can win. A growing market can make anybody a winner if they're in the right place. But it's something that I would definitely do heavy research on as where's the competition and what might be their moat against the other players.
Yeah. With Poet, first of all, yeah, smash the like button if you're on YouTube. I mean, if you're on YouTube, we're not streaming elsewhere, so there is that. Not yet. Now with Poet, I think if Poet wants us to cover the stock, they will need to pay us $47,000. Then I would accept. I would accept to make a video. There is a question from the other Matthew, I think. Thoughts on Apple really not investing in AI capex wise compared to other mega cap stocks? Do they just fall behind? Or are they just banking on apps coming out?
I think let me just Google really quick, but I think Apple is now a big investor of Amazon's AWS for training. Amazon's cloud servers show new AI server, says Apple is a big customer here. We'll use his chips. Yeah. So, I mean, it seems like I don't think Apple is going to kind of create much of their foundational model, Neil. I think Apple kind of sees this market as a commodity, so they'd rather just use maybe some other source solution, as we see them use OpenAI. But in forms of infrastructure, while they're not investing directly in building their own data centers, they're indirectly using other cloud solutions like AWS, which they might be either using their ASIC chips or some of the other providers, other chips as well. We know Apple and Nvidia have like this feud that I can't really see why. Apple is investing, just not directly building its own data centers, as we see.
Yeah, and I'll tackle the other side of things. Apple Intelligence came out. I don't know. You own an iPhone. You can tell me. I think you own an iPhone. You can tell me if
I did. I no longer.
Very good. You see, you learn. Maybe you'll get your chat privileges back. But I don't know. For most people that have iPhones, from what I'm hearing and reading, it sucks. the Apple intelligence. It's not that intelligent. And you would think that from a company like Apple, although, I mean, I've been quite critical of Apple for a while, like innovation-wise and stuff like that. I mean, they've invested billions and billions into their Apple car that will never exist. And they completely missed on this AI thing. Yes, they came out with great chips, right? The M series for the laptops and PCs and all of that. That's great, but I don't know, when you have such a high multiple on your stock, when you're Apple, you're the biggest company on the planet. Maybe now it's Nvidia. You would have thought that they would have come out with something quite spectacular. Even the Apple Vision Pro, when it came out, I was like, if there was a rule that if you bought an Apple Vision Pro, you could not post it on social media, I don't think they would have sold more than 10. Because after 2 weeks, you didn't hear anything about it anymore, which makes sense. I mean, $3,500 for that. It's super expensive. So yeah, I don't know. They will make money no matter what because of the App Store tax. So yeah, it's true. The more apps that come out, the more money that they'll make.
Yeah, I do think if Apple needs to, I do think we're early innings, right? I think we've talked about it in AI. So right now it seems like we're 2 years in, pretty far off. In a longer time view, we can go in 10 years and be like, hey, look, Apple was actually pretty smart and they didn't have to invest at the initial investment, right? So I think we're still too early to really decide Apple's fate. One thing that I would say might be helpful for Apple is at least they are kind of designing these chips and kind of adding the hardware behind it on their phones already. So if they need to turn it on once they do it, it's kind of already in the hand. So at least they're kind of preparing. I just butchered this word and I can't even say it now. But they're ready if they need to turn it on.
Yeah, that is a more positive way of thinking when looking at Apple. No, but it's I don't know. It was quite funny when we heard the whole they're going to use OpenAI, they're going to use maybe Google Gemini and stuff like that to run their models. I would have never thought that Apple would come at that stage. I mean, usually Apple does everything the Apple way, but it does feel like they fell behind a little bit overall.
Yeah. I want to say if the next computing platform is not a phone, I would put more money on Meta and Mark than I would put on Apple.
I have them. I have the Quest 3. I have the Ray-Ban glasses. It's great.
Yeah.
I hope to buy the next one, like the AR glasses. Apparently, that's coming out later this year. I think.
Yeah.
That's going to be great.
Neil, the only thing is I don't have social platforms outside of YouTube and Twitter. And the thing that obviously is good for Meta but bad for me is like if I want to buy any of those other their stuff, hardware, I think I need to have an account with them. Which is weird because I'm a huge investor of Meta, but I don't know. I'm not a user of their platforms.
No Facebook or Instagram?
Nope.
But WhatsApp. But WhatsApp.
Oh, WhatsApp. Yes, yeah. Of course.
Yeah. Can you sign in with WhatsApp?
With WhatsApp? That would be good. If I could, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I had this conversation with a friend a couple of weeks ago. Why we still need phone numbers when you have things like WhatsApp and I don't know, iPhone is iMessage? Like, what's the point of? Okay, the point is probably to have network and cell phone connection, but eventually, I think the phone number will just go away.
Hey, look, Matthew's pretty similar to me. He's a Meta and Suck guy. I am too, but he doesn't use. He's not a Facebook or Instagram guy. Matthew,
fair enough.
I liked you.
Fair enough. The only reason I am on Instagram is because there are some funny reels that my friends and family are sending, and I send as well. I always laugh, and there are some sports stuff that are quite interesting. There was this question: why ASML honing is not in Stargate? ASML is never directly connected to any project. Not directly, meaning you won't see their names. But if you want to make the most advanced chips and all of that, they probably play a part in it. Just in the background.
definitely going to be playing a part in the background, but I don't think the Stargate program is going to drive demand where these TSMCs are going to have to buy a new equipment just to for that project, right? I think it's just ASML is bullish just for the overall bullish sentiment in the AI space. Stargate's demand is not going to be enough to force TSMC to go spend nearly $500 million on a new lithography machine. But overall, still bullish for ASML and the semiconductor equipment space.
Yes. I did have a question, but for you, and that can maybe be a good intro for the or topic for the next live stream. Other than semiconductors and these things connecting to semiconductors, what are you most bullish on in your portfolio, or companies that you do not yet have, maybe that are on your watch list that are interesting?
So I think my biggest buys right now have been in some software plays or the application plays. Um, it's weird. Maybe I might do a video. I'm just so busy focusing on the semiconductor space, but recent buys for me, Neil, have been Uber, have been Adobe. Um, in the software space, I've actually been looking at Synopsys as well. Um, what was another recent buy? So it's been in the software space. One I'm also keeping an eye out is GitLab. So I'm very bullish in the software market. Unity is another one I'm keeping an eye on as well. Um, so software space, but software that's not crazy to understand. Because I feel like there's some software companies that are doing some wild things that you need to understand the ins and outs and everything in between to be able to kind of see the moat behind it. Um, so software that's easy to understand, at least in my space, are the ones I'm pretty excited about.
Okay, no, fair enough. Yeah, I think we touched a little bit on Uber last week. I think they will report earnings as well. We can touch on that when in due time. Unity was an interesting one. I never thought you would mention Unity. I was a Unity shareholder a while ago. I sold at a huge loss, but thank God I sold because it went down another 60%, I think, after
Yeah.
that. So lesson here, lower can always go lower. I mean, if
For
something is
sure.
down 50%, how much lower can it go? It can go down another 50% and then
Yeah.
another 50%. So now Unity is an interesting one. I also touched on Adobe last week. I think I did a video.
Mhm.
It became quite cheap, right, compared to their history, their 4P and all of that. It became quite cheap, and yet the company, I don't see it in the data, in the financial figures that they're struggling, right?
Mhm.
Revenue is going up, RPO is going up, free cash flow is going up ish. So yeah, Adobe is definitely an interesting play. I think they still need to show the market that they can monetize the AI credits and all of that. I think 2025 is a big year for them. So we'll see, even with all the, let's say, negative sentiment around that terms and conditions that creators had to sign not so long ago. But yeah, interesting. Okay, interesting list of
Yeah.
companies.
To me, Neil, it starts to get when I start to really try to find values in sectors I don't, because most of my portfolio is in the semiconductor market.
Hmm.
If it's not in the semiconductor market, I usually just invest in an ETF. And the reason being is I know the ETFs are going to be great. I don't have the time to invest in all these companies, and when I start to escape the semiconductor market, it means that maybe I'm worried about the valuations that I know, and I try to kind of look under every rock, and that for me starts to become a red flag. So right now I'm in that yellow flag moment where I'm trying to look outside that semiconductor space, where maybe my best bet is to just be investing in indexes and waiting for my semiconductor plays to give me some value.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting that you mentioned that, because that's exactly what I've been saying to myself as well. Because we have our positions, right? We have our core positions. Then we have some other plays. That's fine. We can diversify a little bit. And then I was like, okay, I'm looking to that company. I'm looking to that company. That's quite interesting. That's quite interesting. And then I'm like, it's nice to open new positions, like it's a nice shiny new thing in my portfolio. But then when you think about it, you buy positions because, or it's mispriced. So okay, fine, might be a short-term thing, and the upside might be quite good. But then on the flip side, you're like, do I really need to open a new position, or is it better to or hold cash or add
Mm-hmm.
to my existing names or the ones that I just added to the portfolio, and stay with that amount of stocks. Which, and it's, we as investors, I guess, and also as creators, we do this on a daily basis. So we get into new companies and we read all of that. So we might have like the push towards, oh, maybe I want to dive a little bit deeper and then get my feet wet in that company or this company. It's funny because I ended my next video by saying exactly that, right? Those are great companies, but right now, although I like them, I just don't know if it's smart to open a new position in these companies. I talked about Novo Nordisk, the
Yeah.
European company, took a hit. It's an excellent business, but again, do I need to open a new position just because it's an excellent company? I don't know.
Yeah.
So
And,
yeah.
and and for me, one thing that has helped out is if I open up a new position, I have to open up like I made it that if I'm opening up a new position, it's gonna be a big position.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm right off the bat, my initial investment is already going to be a big position compared to my overall portfolio. So now this stops me from, hey, just randomly going crazy and buying and finding. So sometimes putting little things like that can help out. But we have some crazy guys that are doing successful, like Matthew here, 80% in Nvidia. I remember he used to be 100% in Nvidia, and then it's kind of sold off to kind of go into other players. You have other players 2x on 80% on NVDL. Obviously, if you did that from the get-go, you've done really well.
Yep.
But I don't know how much my wife would be happy if I told her, hey babe, 80% of our portfolio is in Nvidia.
Yeah. I mean, I had at one point over 50% in Tesla. But yeah, I reduced it a
Yeah.
little bit, which I think was okay. Now in hindsight, it's a smart thing, but and 80% Nvidia and then 2x, you've done quite well. Quite well.
All right.
There are a couple of questions I want to go
Mhm.
over here. This one, what's the chance of Nvidia hitting $5 trillion in market cap? I feel like Nvidia should be $200, but a company going from 3.5 to 5 trillion seems like a huge task.
Definitely it's a huge task, but one thing I want to say is one of the biggest pushbacks to this is the loss of big number, where it's a lot harder for a big number to get bigger. I want to say we've kind of seen that is not necessarily the truth
Mm-hmm.
case, as we've seen $1 trillion companies go to 2 trillion to the 3 trillion, right? The only thing is, as long as we continue to see investments like Stargate, it is possible. I'm not saying it's a guaranteed. It's just and I when I talk about Nvidia, I look at adding evidence to my bullish case. I have this suitcase that has all the bullish thoughts on Nvidia. Seeing things like Stargate, in my opinion, give more notes to that bullish case and increases the chances of something like that happening. But it is very difficult, and we need to continue to see heavy investments in the AI space.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said previously, I'm sure people were thinking, oh, if you're a $100 billion company, can you become a $500 billion company? It's quite difficult. And then they became the $500 billion company, and then they became a trillion, then two, then three, then four. Eventually, you will get five, maybe you'll get even 10, unless they got broken up, because you're getting into this area where Nvidia, Tesla, with robotics, especially humanoid robots, the total addressable market is quite big.
Yeah.
So $5 trillion in market cap. If you're already seeing these types of companies become extremely profitable today, it's not impossible. My problem with that will be that a lot of money will just be going to these giants, and how much money will there be left, let's say, to go into these smaller players, unless of course there is a huge amount of money that's coming into the market.
Random question, and maybe this might be a future business. Completely random, Neo. I don't know what I thought about this. I want a robot that can cook for me, right? That's my goal. I feel like if I have a robot that can cook for me, I've made it. That's where I feel like I've made it. But let's say I'm traveling from New Jersey to some other state. Do I have to buy a plane ticket for my robot? Is there going to be a heavy load for my robot? How is my robot going to come from me from one state to another state? Now that's
Aha.
another market.
No, and this is something I thought about for Airbnb. For Airbnb, when you have your Airbnb, there is a designated robot in that Airbnb that can cook and clean. You only have to log in with your own details, so it
So,
remembers who
yeah.
you are. Ah,
That's true. That's true. You have like a safe load file, so it's good.
yeah,
Okay, all right, I can see that happening.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
because my robot's gonna know how I want my chicken cook or my steak cook. I don't want to have some random robot
Memory.
that I have to reteach. Yeah,
Yep, for sure. Memory is going to be a big thing. But no, I truly believe that Airbnb is going to do something with humanoid robots in the future, or stuff like that. I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer, right? I will definitely pick an Airbnb that has it over
yeah.
someone that over another that doesn't.
Very
Um,
true. We got some rent a robot train, of course. Matthew's robot only flies first class and prefers gin and tonic. Bob, by then you might be able to send your drone. Very true. Greg, aren't you worried about all these huge multi-models AI services popping up that will make Adobe obsolete or lost in the market? I just think Adobe is going to be able to continue to benefit from the data that they have. Not only do you need to be able to create a product, but I think your data that you control is going to be able to do pretty amazing things. I mean, Midjourney, Dali, you have all these players that have image generation, but none of them have been able, in my opinion, to make you quit Adobe. And Adobe has integrated those solutions with their platforms. And I think that's what we're going to continue to see. I think maybe back then, Neil, the market was expecting a lot from Adobe
mhm.
and they didn't get it. And that's why the market's not liking the stock price. And that's why I'm liking it right now. I think those crazy expectations that were there for Adobe that didn't make sense have been removed. And now the market's like, hey, I don't care about this stock anymore.
Yeah, no, I agree. Plus, very important to note that Adobe does have licensing agreements with a lot of their partners. Um, Adobe is quite big in marketing as well. So when you generate something from Adobe, you know that it's legally fine to use it, which is something that's very important and something I don't think that the others are giving you. Plus, like you said, it's integrated inside of Adobe Suite, so it's fine. They can generate an image, Midjourney and whatnot. But then in Adobe, you have the image generator, plus you can edit your images with Photoshop. You can go edit your videos and all of that. So once you, again, network effects here, huge, ecosystems, huge. Um, so yeah, that's why I understand the fears. I understand the questions. The market wants to see monetization, but I just think Adobe has built up an amazing business over the years. Not cheap, not cheap. I'm paying that subscription, and it does hurt to see it every single month. Um, but it's a good service. It's a good service.
Yeah. And just shout out to the super chat we have here. Tell your wife about cooking robot. Man,
I
I need it.
once,
I just need it for myself.
yeah. I mean, when you said that, I'm like, yeah, the robot will be the wife, but there is no robot and no wife yet for me. So maybe they'll come at the same time.
All right, Neil. I think this is a good way to end it. I think that was a pretty fun exercise to think how would robots get to point A to point B.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
but again, appreciate all the viewers, right, Neil? Greg, Julie, Bob, Matthew, Rojas from my side, and everybody else that asked a question. I mean, this makes the live stream so much funner. Right, Neil? If not, you just hear both of us just babble all day.
Talking about robots that cook and clean. Yeah, no, for sure. Thanks to Heinzie. It's been a while. Yeah, I did some live streams with Heinzie. Thanks to Joseph and all the others. Really appreciate. We did change the time just for today because I did have a meeting, but usually we're back Tuesday, Thursday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
It's going to be quite interesting in the coming weeks with earnings season. So stay tuned for more live streams.
Yeah. Agree. All right. Peace.